Welcome, everyone, to another episode for Fake Nerds Watch for Star Trek Strange New Worlds. This is episode 4, Memento Mori. We were a little behind, as I mentioned in the last episode, for a Ghost of Illyria, that we would separate these two episodes. So here's the next one. So Memento Mori is episode 4. What do we think about this one? I'm, of course, joined. I forgot to introduce you. I'm, of course, joined by Cookie from Just a Little Podcast. How you doing, sir?
Doing good, my friend. Doing very well. And this episode was another great episode. I like what they did. They definitely have some callbacks to things that we've seen or things that we've heard about and now get mentioned in this episode, which I really like. It was good. It was good.
This is my favorite episode of the show.
Really?
By far. I think this is the best episode of the show so far.
I think this definitely has a lot of things that tack on from what the episode 3 talked about, especially with being an augment and being different from everybody else and stuff like that, and things that are going on in today's world rather than also in Star Trek. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I think that this episode does a lot of things that I like. It's very well paced. It's very well written. The scene in the nebula or in the gas giant that's being consumed by a black hole is gorgeous. Like there's a bit where like Ortega's is, you see the ship like piloting and you can see how the ship is like struggling to stay like with it, and then like how it points its bow right at the Gorn ship and then drops the torpedo. All of that is awesome.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you.
There was a lot of talk about how this is inspired by submarine movies, and I can definitely tell. And obviously, there's the inspiration from Wrath of Khan, which I picked up on because the end of Wrath of Khan is a very similar ending. I like this episode quite a bit, and this is the episode that did it. Star Trek: Strange New Worlds is my favorite of the new Star Trek shows.
That's great. That's so good to hear. I'm right there with you. I mean, I have no negativity at all about the series so far. We're in episode 4, and things have been, like you said, very, very much in a constant motion forward, and it's not a standstill. I did talk about it last episode that it was like a filler. There is no filler. Everything so far has its own beats, has its own rhythm, and everything flows continuously by itself, if that makes any sense.
It does. And one of the things that I really like about this show is, this is the next logical step from like Lower Decks, right? Mm-hmm. Lower Decks is the Star Trek formula through the lens of a hyper comedy.
Yeah.
This is just the Star Trek formula. This is Star Trek
comedy.
Well, just take out the
comedy, but yeah.
But it's not the Rick and Morty comedy that's
right. It's not the focal point.
Yeah. And so like this show is the closest we have gotten to pure Star Trek since the Orville, right? I mean, like for real, like I think that this show has managed to prove that a traditional Star Trek show could not just work, but work well.
Yeah.
In today's day. Because I think the thinking was when they went into Discovery, because I know Discovery went through a lot of changes. It was initially supposed to be an anthology show. But the idea was that, okay, Discovery needs to be different because television has changed drastically since Star Trek Enterprise went off the air, and we need to change it to match with an audience that's going to want a prestige programming. And, I like Discovery fine. We talk about it quite a bit, but like, this is the one where it's like, I go back to that interview that Akiva Goldsman has. Like, this is the one that you should have done. Yeah. This is what you should have started with, because this is proof positive that this formula still works.
Correct. I agree. And I think that keeping up with what's going on with television, this still does it very much so. It combines the technology that's roughly there and just equates it to a formula that has worked since the 60s.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things I really like is how they've updated the Enterprise. I talk about it a bit in some of the other episodes, but like I do really like how they've updated the Enterprise. It feels recognizably the Enterprise from TOS. Like, you've got nods, like you see that they have the colorful buttons on their
Mhm.
on their platforms, but they also have the touch screens, and I'm like, that's a really cool way to pay tribute to what had come before, but also modernize it for a
Yeah,
more for a less forgiving audience, let's say.
correct. I do kind of wish that there was a little bit more color in representation of TOS
Sure.
with like the redness kind of going everywhere. I would have loved something like that, just little areas that have that touch.
Yeah, there's still a sense of the corridors are very JJ Enterprise, are very
Yeah,
Kelvin, because they're very white and
neutral.
Apple. They called it the Apple Enterprise when it first
Yes.
came around. I think the bridge does a good job of being of being a more updated bridge of the Enterprise. But I think you're right about like the corridors and what we see
Mhm.
about like the sick bay. Everything else hasn't quite merged the aesthetic of the original series with the aesthetic of what we have now.
Yeah.
Um, but to be fair, Jadzia Dax, when she went back in time, did
Oh,
imply
Jadzia.
did imply she like Terry Farrell.
Oh yeah. Who doesn't? Who doesn't?
I mean, I like Ezri better. Not as a character, but
Okay.
as like attractiveness, I prefer Ezri.
Okay.
Um, I think Jadzia is a better character. Just want to be clear before anybody comes at me with their pitchforks. But Jadzia seems to imply that the aesthetic of the original series was a choice
Yeah.
and not and not just because they're like, oh yeah, look at the wood finish of the tricorder. It's like everything back then was so nice. It's like it felt like everything they did to make the Enterprise, to make the technology look like that, was like in universe a choice on Starfleet's point. Be like,
Yeah.
let's make our tricorders out of wood instead of metal.
Metal. Yeah.
Um, but I'm sure that's not what we're happening here. Anyway, this episode is really great, and I want to talk about some things
Let's do it.
about it. I have a note here. My very first note. The Enterprise is really pretty. I really like how the show looks.
Yes.
And one of the things that I think is really cool is that you can see the imperfections on the hull plating
Yes.
from like the light when the light shines from the headlights of the Enterprise, and you see like it reflects off of the different panels of the hull differently,
Mhm.
and the light source comes from a different place. I think that's a really cool touch.
I agree. And I know we talked about it in the last episode. With Star Wars has this very much a rugged appearance,
Mhm.
whereas Star Trek is intentionally beautiful and intentionally elegant.
It's a
And I
utopia.
love the fact that this is like an exploration ship, but at the same time, it's like a luxury exploration ship. It's granted, it's the showcase of the fleet, which is awesome. So
Yeah. The flagship. They say it's the flagship of the fleet. However, that is not the case. In canon, the Enterprise was not the flagship of the fleet until after Kirk left command. But
so
whatever.
who was or what was the ship that was the flagship? Do you know?
I don't know. They never say in the original series, but the idea was never to have the Enterprise be the flagship of the fleet until the motion picture showed up, and that
Okay,
was made. The motion picture implies that it was made the flagship because of Kirk's exploits on the Enterprise,
I gotcha.
like as a tribute to him.
Hmm.
But whatever, it's the flagship. I don't care. Starfleet Remembrance Day, I think, is new to canon. I don't know for sure.
Okay.
But it's a cool way to frame this episode.
Yeah.
Because on, you know, well, Pike has this great thing where it's like, we've all served with people who have died. We've all served on ships that maybe have been lost. And La'an has a pin that she refuses to wear because of her
Mhm.
trauma with what happened to her ship. But everyone's wearing other pins. Pike, I don't know if you caught this. Do you know what Pike's pin is?
I don't. I saw that because I got a chance to watch it on the big screen this time.
Finally, not on your stupid phone.
So I saw it and I was just like, I really wanted to try to not rush through the episode, but I wanted to watch it to give us enough time to go and really talk about it. Um, but I
It's
did see it and
Discovery.
they did really zoom in quite a bit on it and focus on it.
It's Discovery.
Really?
Hmm.
That's cool. That's a very cool little nod.
I think so. There's two nods to Discovery in this episode. There's the mind meld where La'an hears Michael's voice.
Yes.
Um, say "I love you" to Spock. That's their final moments together from the season 2 finale.
Hmm.
And then um, and then him wearing the Discovery pin is to not just to keep the cover that the Discovery was destroyed, but to also kind of honor the people that he came to know when he was on that ship. You know, the people we're still trying to figure out who they are. He
Yeah.
apparently knew them really well.
Gotcha. He knew everything about him.
See, what I find so cool about that is like so cool about the show is like I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't just keep shitting on Discovery. But like
You already started. Commit. Just
I
commit.
did fine. But like every week I rail on Discovery for not telling me who these characters are. It's been 4 seasons and I feel like I know it's been 4 seasons of Discovery and in 4 episodes I know more about Ortega's and her character than I do to Detmer.
Yes.
Like then they have the same role on the ship. I just know Ortega's better. I get a sense of her character more. I know I can anticipate what she's going to say. I want to see more of her. Detmer, she's a good
like
pilot.
half an episode with her talking about like her family and talking about her like what's called like surgical implants with her eye and her head and stuff like that. But past that, we don't know much about her.
Well, we know what her surgical implants came from. I don't want to talk about Discovery.
Well, sorry. Well, needless to say, Discovery had an opportunity to shine as a bright beacon or as bright as Strange New Worlds is doing currently.
Yeah.
However, I do feel like Strange New Worlds is still paying homage and respect to something that came, I guess, slightly previously before this came.
It's just the benefit. It's just the benefit that Strange New World has fallen into that Discovery chose not to go that route, which is episodic. Because
Yeah.
episodic storytelling, we can showcase other people and we can get to know different characters through various hours. Discovery chose not to do that, and we're still suffering for that.
Do you think that if that's the case, hypothetically speaking, Discovery was episodic and Strange New Worlds is episodic, that you would have a different view on Strange New Worlds because we're watching Picard as a series, as a standalone, almost like an elongated film, but we have Lower Decks as episodic, we have Strange New Worlds, and we have Discovery. So that's 3 episodic shows almost back to back to back.
So in your hypothetical situation, the only serialized Star Trek show on the air is Picard.
Correct.
Okay. That's an interesting hypothetical. I don't think all of Discovery's problems are fixed with an episodic format.
Mm-hmm.
And I also don't know if the writers are up for that because they're clearly not up for a serialized storytelling.
I gotcha.
I don't think it fixes all of its problems, but I do think it fixes specifically its character problem. Now, if they chose to make an episodic story where it's not just about Burnham every week, it's about Detmer one week, Reese another week, Owo another week, and we get to know these characters through context clues, through their roles on the ship, through the journey that they have to go through in whatever specific episode. And I do think I talked about this before in season 4. I do think within their serialized story, they have the option because they clearly don't have enough story to tell 13 episodes.
That
throw in a Detmer story, throw in a Owo story. Like you can do that and we'll be fine with that. In fact, it'll probably make whatever the final beat of your season, what your season wants to be, land even better because we've gotten to know the characters better.
Correct. We're now more invested into what's happening.
Yeah. Now that said, I want to go back to the Strange New Worlds because this felt like a season finale. A lot of people were dying. And a lot of people almost died in this episode.
It was extremely intense as an episode. Like there were, and even so, there were certain things that happened that made you start to, I guess, believe in a character.
Hmm.
In the beginning, we see like these two dudes. Well, we see one guy just kind of nod. We have another guy sitting down.
We see Chief Kyle. That's who that is.
That's who it was.
That's the transporter chief. See, I know who the transporter chief of Strange New Worlds is, but I don't know whatever.
So we see these characters, and it's like we start to literally, you automatically know, okay, something's gonna happen because we're spending time on this person, and out of nowhere, boom, hey, they're dead. You need to go and save
Kyle's
yourself.
not dead. Kyle's not dead.
Who was the one who was in the area in the lower decks part that pushed the other guy out?
So the blue shirt that we meet. So Chief Kyle is the transporter chief. He's the really skinny Asian guy.
Okay.
He's in the red shirt.
Okay.
So he's the one doing kind of like maintenance, whatever, and his buddy like nods at him. Maybe a little bit more than buddies. I don't know. I'm just implying.
It seemed
some
like
things.
that, but I didn't know. Yeah.
And we don't know. That guy's dead anyway. It doesn't matter. So like they have this like kind of moment in the hallway during the opening beat where Pike is talking to the crew, which is a very good speech, by the way.
Yes.
And so then cut towards the end, it's those same guys. Kyle is running through the hallways to get out of the lower decks because they're evacuating, because they're about to lose the lower decks essentially. And this guy is hurt. The blue shirt guy is hurt. And so Kyle tries to help the blue shirt guy, but the blue shirt guy pushes Kyle through the bulkhead before it closes. And the blue shirt guy loses his life.
That's who it was. Okay. Yeah.
In a truly great character moment for Kyle and for random blue shirt that I've never seen before, but like I felt for him when you see the bulkhead blow and he just gets blown back. Like that's an incredible sequence.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm saying. Just the fact that we as the audience, if you say, care what happens to people that are, not to say insignificant, but that are not our main crew, that are just secondhand people on the ship, and we still care about what happens to them.
There's a girl. There's the I don't know if she's the chief communications officer, but she's the communications officer on duty when the Gorn first attack, and then she disappears from the rest of the episode. And I was like, oh my god, what happened to her? Like I gave a shit about her, like because I don't know her name, but like I was worried for her life. And then we see she's the one that Una gives the plasma to.
Okay.
So I was a great moment when it's just like, you know, okay, we're gonna give you the last of the plasma. Everyone's gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine. We're gonna give you the last of the plasma. We're gonna put you out. Nurse, I need plasma. Oh shit!
Take mine.
And without even a hesitation, Una's like, "I'll be fine. Just give her the plasma, and I'll be fine."
They're like, "No, you're gonna lose a lot of blood." She's like, "That's an order. Give me my mask so I can knock out."
Yeah, that's a great character moment. So the episode has a very chilling start where this little girl kind of says that the Gorn click, which we've never heard before. The Gorn hiss in Arena, which is the first appearance of them. Sure, I guess these Gorn click, whatever. And they and so that cues La'an to kind of get everyone ready, and it's such a great oh shit moment. Because she's like, hey, we need to check for this thing. And it's like, we found this. You need to raise shields. We can't because the thing. And it's like, oh no, this was it. And like as you're discovering it with the crew, you're just like, when Pike is like, oh shit, this was the plan the whole time. Like you as the audience are like, oh shit, it was a trap.
100%. And I immediately want to say I got a call back to like the J.J. Abrams scene when we kind of see that take place, like we get a click of what's going on. It's like, oh crap, this has happened before. And I remember this happening. And this is when it happened.
Oh, you're right. When Kirk woke up in the sick bay because of the lightning storm in space.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's just like we talked about previous episode where these writers are pulling from all of canon and not canon to use as ways to enhance what we're watching.
Yeah. one of the things that I also really like about this episode is how Pike commands the Enterprise. We've seen before a lot of him talking about like, this is, this guy has this knowledge. So what do you guys think we should do? We should do this. All right, let's do this. This sounds good. This time Pike is very much in charge. He's like, what's going on? Well, there's the brown dwarf. There's the brown dwarf. We're gonna lose all the things. And he's like, it's a great idea. Let's go in. And everyone's like, wait a second, what's going on? Is like anything that happens to us will also happen to them. We have to go in.
Yeah. He takes charge when it's needed.
Yeah, and he's the captain, and one of the things I really like about his commanding style is that he is clearly like, everyone in the room is the best. Everyone in the room is the best that Starfleet has to offer. And so I would be remiss not to use their expertise. So, but in this kind of command situation where it's his responsibility to keep the ship alive, to keep his crew alive. He'd also, he takes like the expertise, like, what do you know about the Gorn? What do you know about this? Like, explain redshift, which is a great moment. And he goes, doesn't Spock say he goes, great, so we're going to go into the black hole. And Spock's like, I did not suggest that. And he goes, no, I know. We're just going to do it anyway.
It's so good. It's so good. And those are the things that we need from a captain. Sometimes it's great to take advice from other people. And other times it's like, hey, I have to make an impulse decision that's going to be life or death for my crew.
Yeah. I love Anson Mount as Pike a lot. And I'm glad we get to see him like be that captain that I wanted to see. Like, we've seen him be a good captain, but this was like him being commanding, like, we're gonna make it through this. He's always like, I believe in Enterprise. Enterprise is gonna make it through this. We'll be fine. There's something that I always get frustrated with when it comes to how the creators talk about the current Star Trek shows.
Okay.
Something I disagree with. They always talk about how Star Trek is about hope. It's about the promise of a better future. It's about hopefulness and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, hope isn't a theme. It's just kind of this thing that you feel. And I don't actually think Star Trek's theme is hope. I think it's the betterment of all mankind.
I can agree with that.
Yeah, I think for me personally, Star Trek is not the promise of a better future. It is the work towards a better future. It is that if we go out there and we work towards it, we can be better.
Correct.
That's what I think Star Trek is about. Now, Pike, however, has a speech in this where he talks to La'an, where he says to La'an, I wrote it down. Belief can be the difference between victory and defeat. Because he's like, you can't be blunt right now. You have to, even if you don't think this is possible, if you tell the crew this is possible, they can do it, they can pull off miracles.
Yeah. And she uses that and she applies it.
Yeah.
In the episode. It's great.
And I think that's the best excuse I've ever heard for the theme of Star Trek being hope. Like, I've never bought it because no one's ever been able to explain it until now.
Yeah. But like you, I've kind of always looked at it as this is more of not strive for perfection, but continue to strive for progress in the right direction.
Just to constantly strive to be better.
Yeah. And you see that beat by beat through majority of Star Trek, which is really lovely. But this one, I definitely felt like this one was, if you show the optimism and the hope that things will succeed, as a leader, they're going to go naturally believe in you because they want to believe in you and they want to win. They want it to happen.
And there's no one who does that better than Ortega's, right? Like, Ortega's has this thing, the whole episode of Ortega's like, we can't do this. We're gonna be destroyed. But at the end, when they come up with the idea of,
she's like, I can do this.
No, but it's not just that. It's better than that. It's when they come up with the idea to escape with the explosion and the black hole. Pike, she's like, we're all gonna die. But Pike says, "What's the matter, Ortegas? You don't want to ride it? You don't want to ride the wave of a black hole?" And that triggers something in her, and she says, "Well, actually, that make it sound fun." Yeah. And so
And she's like, if you
that
pull
brings
this
in
off, this is the Pike move.
yeah, and so that brings in that confidence to pull off a miracle, like
Yeah,
Pike was talking about. And I just think that was that more than anything has made a lot of has been the best summation of what this hope that that they've been talking about since 2017
for sure.
is meant to be.
There's a theme in this particular episode that showcases for me, at least on majority of the characters that I saw, is growth. Every single
Mhm.
character, you see them grow in some way or form or fashion, and it's wonderful to kind of see that. Like Ahura, you see her grow with not having confidence in her ability to go and do certain things,
Mhm.
and looking at things or feeling things in a different manner.
Yeah.
And everybody has their own way of now growing just a little bit by what they think is not possible and comes out to be possible.
And you see Hemmer and Uhura have a plot line where Hemmer is it's not that he doesn't trust other people, is that he very much prefers to do everything his own way.
Yeah.
And he has to trust that Uhura will do it the right way. And
Mhm.
that's very difficult for him. But he has this he but at the end of it he does believe in her enough that it's going to work out. But it doesn't really matter because they're just going to launch it out for an airlock anyway.
Yeah. But still, it was nice to see that happen and see the change in somebody. Um, I do want to talk about somebody at towards the end of the episode, but when we get to that, I just thought this was so cool.
Who
But
do you
we'll
want
get
to
to
talk
it.
about? Let's get to it
Um,
now.
no. I'll wait until because it's literally
No,
like the very end of the episode. So
do
wait
it.
until the very no, save it.
No, do it now.
All right. Umbega, when number one wakes up and she like is kind of like dazed and she looks over and she sees the IV in her arm, and then she looks over to him and sees that he's actually giving her the blood.
Hmm.
Like that sent chills on me because it was a reminder of the previous episode. Like, hey, I'm a physician first. I don't care about where you come from, your race, your creed, anything about you. I'm here to go and save lives. I'm not here for anything else besides to do that.
Yeah.
And that was just a beautiful reminder of who he is and what we should strive for as people is to save lives, to not necessarily kill one another, but to do something to help each other out. And that
Yeah.
was just a nice little thing. And I love that. I thought that was so cool that they continue to give, like I said, continue to give growth on a lot of characters. And I keep doing it.
I love their technology that they can just do whatever they want through their shirts. I just think
Yeah,
it's a nice
yeah,
touch.
yeah.
Yes, I agree with that. The drama in sick bay is all very good.
Mhm.
Showing up people, the triage stuff. That's all very good stuff. Sick bay has a new feature that I think is great, where they have force fields over the bio
Shields.
beds.
Yes, I thought that was cool.
I was like, that's a great idea. Why hasn't anybody thought of that before?
That was so cool.
Chapel is wonderful.
Oh yeah,
She has this thing. It's like giving birth through your mouth. Who talks like that? Me.
me. So good.
The let's see. The mind meld it's okay. I like the idea that La'an sees the Gorn much like Kirk saw Khan, or Picard sees the Borg. Like
Mhm.
they're her white whale. She's Captain Ahab in this story.
Yeah.
Where when she is responsible for the destruction of one of their ships, we zoom in on her and she's happy about it. She's not quite cracking a smile, but you can tell that she's like, I got you, you sons of
Yeah,
bitches, I
she's
got you.
enthralled for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's
I
a
like that
good
reference,
moment.
by the way.
What?
I like that the reference, the white whale reference. That's a really good reference to Free Willy. It was good. Moby Dick. I'm just joking.
You gave me a heart attack.
That would have been hilarious. Oh man. But yes, I agree with you. Like, and I like the fact that while doing the mind meld, you had Spock kind of walk her through what was going on. Like, hey, you're putting up your own walls. You need to break through your walls in order to really truly figure out what's going on with your past, or else
Yeah.
you're not going to make it through.
Well, it's not necessarily her past that they need to reconcile with. She knows what the lights are, but she's blocked it. So she needs to unblock that specifically. And so when they get that information, like there's like your subconscious is pushing back, we should break the meld.
Yeah.
And that subconscious pushing back is also what opened the door to Spock's subconscious and how she found out about Michael.
And you know what that was a callback to?
The finale of season 2 of Discovery.
And Picard.
No.
Yes.
What?
How does Picard has to go through his mind to go and figure out about his mom and all that stuff to realize?
I don't think. Hold on. I don't think it's a callback.
I know, because they were probably filmed around the same time, but it's just cool that one kind of theoretically came before the other, or was released before the other.
Actually, that's a good point that you'd bring up, because there is a lot of talk about how Star Trek has been handling trauma lately. Discovery, Picard, and Strange New Worlds have all been dealing with trauma in a way that the original Star Trek shows have just never did. Personally, for me, I actually think they're all handled very well, very differently, but in their own way good. There's still a lot of work to be done in how trauma is portrayed on screen, especially if you want to do it with a deft hand. But I think for the most part, Discovery, Picard, and Strange New Worlds have done a good job in their own ways. And again, none of them have done it the same. But La'an, I think so far is the best. Outside of her seeing her brother everywhere, which I wasn't crazy about, I do really think that how they handled La'an, like with the pin, when she's like, when Una is like, "Why don't you have your pin? We could get you to a shrink," and she's like, "I'm fine. I don't need a head doctor. I'm not broken." It's like that she does have this trauma that she's not reconciling with, but through her encounter with the Gorn, it does help her get to the point where she can at least put the pin back on.
Yeah.
So I honestly think Star Trek is making a lot of really good strides dealing with this kind of trauma, and I'm happy that they're at least attempting. And for those listening or watching, your mileage may vary on whether or not they succeed, but at least they're trying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see what else we got. Oh yeah, when they arrive on Phoenix 3, just the blood everywhere.
Oh yeah, and then the dog just barking,
chilling.
It really was.
Did they just leave that dog there?
I think they did. I really think they did.
Those bastards. That dog's just left on that planet forever.
Sad.
Uhura and Hemmer have to get into EV suits, and they're both pretty nervous that they're not going to do it. Hemmer has a great arc in this, actually, where he talks about how, like, I didn't want to be an engineer, I wanted to be a biologist, and a botanist. Thank you. Yep. And she talks about how does it make sense that an Enar who are pacifists, why is one in Starfleet? And he says pacifism isn't passivity. I will not fight for Starfleet, but I will work to defend its ideals.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really great summation of what basically a pacifism is, because it's not the absence of fighting. It's active protection.
And I think it was protection of, like, all living life forms. I think it was. Yeah.
Like, to him, all life is sacred, and he doesn't want to kill anybody. I mean, he might have killed a few Gorn, though. It's his ship. I'm just saying, it's his ship.
Very true. He didn't see anything, so it's fine.
The stagecraft that they use, because they use the Mandalorian technology where they have the screens projecting into a set extension. This was the cargo bay was a redress of the engineering set. Okay. And you can tell.
But it worked. It's fine.
It's how many decks are we going to see with that same railing with a long whatever. The cargo bay and engineering. Well, the cargo bay confuses me because, like, I know where it is now. It's under the shuttle bay. But now I'm confused where engineering is, because engineering is very big in Strange New Worlds. So then
Okay.
where's the shuttle bay? On that
I could not even map out
small
anything. I'm
hull.
still trying to figure out where the bridge is located. That
Well,
was a
that's
joke.
easy.
That was a joke.
You're bad at this.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's do it. Let's do a thing. Let's do a show and tell.
Make
Here's
yourself
the-
bigger though. Make yourself bigger so we can see it.
No. We got this. We got this. Maybe I can make myself bigger. How do I do that?
Bottom. There you go.
Oh, look at that. Now Cookie's small. Okay, so like here we go. So this is the Enterprise.
Mhm.
There's the bridge, Cookie.
Ah,
Right there.
see the red circles? I thought the red circle was the bridge. Now I know. That was a joke. Just a joke. Just a joke.
These are the what are they called? Oh God, what are they called?
Like the aft thrusters?
No,
area?
it's the Bussard collectors. Bussard collectors. This Enterprise has not received its circles yet. Okay. So the cargo bay is here, under here. So it's probably about this. This is so then engineering is here because it's got to be connected to the nacelles. So we just have a little bitty shuttle bay, just a little tiny shuttle bay right there?
I mean, let's be real. Majority of ships that we've ever seen usually only have about 2 small crafts that they can go and use to ship out.
I don't like being this big.
They don't have a lot of shuttles. They usually, to my knowledge, it's usually like what 2 shuttles per ship that we ever see. And this one had the Galileo, right? I think it was a ship.
Yeah, the Galileo, which is a famous shuttle in Star Trek.
Yeah.
I do not know how many shuttles they have, but it's, I don't know, just things I like to think about.
I would have never thought about it. So you've enhanced my knowledge.
Because I'm weird. I'm part of this group where where they asked, does the 8 years, because I don't know if you watched the Thor Love and Thunder trailer?
Yes, I did.
Okay, well, so someone was like, the Thor Love and Thunder doesn't make any sense. It hasn't been 8 years since Ragnarok. It has been 8 years since Thor the Dark World is what they said. And I'm like, and me being weird and somehow have made myself the expert on the Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline, I had to give them the breakdown of how Thor and Jane's relationship did not end after Thor the Dark World. It ended after Age of Ultron. And if that is the case, then 8 years matches, because they probably broke up this is a stupid thing. Why am I going through this? I'm weird is the point. I know weird shit.
Hey, you're among friends. You're among other nerds, so it's good.
I get obsessed with weird shit, and I just memorize that weird shit.
It's totally fine. It's totally fine.
Okay. The planet thing. Wait. Oh, the plasma. Oh, there's an episode of Voyager that I really like where the Doctor remembers that he saved Ensign Kim's life and not someone else who was equally as bad, and like he starts malfunctioning because he starts to realize that like he did it because Kim was a friend. And that's why he made that choice. The decision to give the communications officer the plasma reminded me of that decision, where like M'Benga, if left with the choice, would give it to Una because she's the senior officer, she's the friend, but she said it's an order. Give it to the junior officer. That's an order. So I thought that was good. Let's see. Oh, Pike has a moment where he's very proud of himself because he has this thing. He does this thing where he talks about like he says to them is like, okay, explain redshift. It's the thing where it's like if the black hole and blah blah blah, and he's like, yep, I knew that. We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that. Because he's like so happy that his plan, like he came up with this really cool plan that uses the black hole, and he's like, yeah, I did. I'm cool.
Yeah, that's too great.
All right. Oh, this episode also, I wrote this down before we start recording, but this episode reminded me of something that I think the later Star Trek shows forgot.
Okay.
And that Enterprise dealt with a bit. Space is dangerous.
Oh yeah.
Pike has a thing at the end where he's doing his captain's log. I don't know how often Burnham did a captain's log, but I'm really happy to see like captain's logs are back.
Do you, since you are a Star Trek fan, do you try to make sure that their timestamp is accurate?
No,
Or
I
you
can't do
just
that. I'll go
okay?
insane.
Okay, just want to make sure because I'm like I thought of it. I'm like the more I've been hanging out with like you and Mike and doing this stuff, I started thinking I'm like okay, I wonder if they actually are following the timestamps. If that actually is logical of what they're doing, or if it's just numbers at this point.
So I do know a little bit about the star dates. I never, because I know myself, I never wanted to commit to the star date thing because
Mhm.
I'll go insane. It'll be
Okay,
something that I'll just hyper focus on and want to become an expert on, and I just can't do that.
I got you.
So I let it just kind of pass over me. However, the Kelvin timeline changed the star dates completely. What I think Star Trek Change the World does is just kind of throw out some numbers. That's what the
Okay.
original series did. Stardate, bloop de dop, bloop flop. Like they don't they
You
never
know, you
gave a
could have
shit.
just said numbers, right? Instead of oopsie blah blue blah. You didn't have to go and quote Kanye West's song. I understand you
I'm
like
very tired.
it.
But the Kelvin timeline uses the year as
Okay.
the star date. So he says in the first one, it's like, what's the date? And it's like 2254 or 2248 or whatever Kirk was born. But like it's like 22 da 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 da. And so and that's because the writers of that movie wanted to make sense of the star dates and not go through the effort that Paramount had already done
Okay.
to make the star dates make sense. Because by the time you get to next gen and on, I think they did have a number system.
Okay.
And then Enterprise just uses the date, like the proper date. They hadn't converted star date yet in universe by that point.
Okay.
But I think Strange New Worlds is just throwing out numbers, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine. Like I don't
Yeah.
care. Star dates, I don't get it. I don't want to get it. I'm good.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
It's not something I should ever get into. Don't.
I'm not even saying anything. I'm letting it ride.
All right. Yeah, anyways, I like that the reminder was that the reminder of this episode is that space is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Like we go out into the frontier will push back.
Yes.
The Gorn being this recontextualizing the Gorn to be an ever-present, very dangerous foe is really good to me. That you have this. You can't use the Borg, you can't use the Romulans, so you use the Gorn. And the Gorn are really interesting because we don't get a lot of the Gorn because they're kind of stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like Arena, look at that Godzilla looking ass. Like that little piece of shit. Like Kirk was able to MacGyver a rocket launcher out of a piece of bamboo and a rock, and he killed him. So I don't, so like the Gorn aren't scary, but the idea is that they're supposed to be. And so kind of going back to that idea that and I think it's smart because they can't show us the Gorn.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot physically see the Gorn right now because if they do that does break canon.
Yeah.
Because we're not supposed to see them until the original series.
Correct.
So but if you have them kind of constantly being this threat that is pushing into the Federation, that is destroying worlds. Because La'an says the Gorn activate primal fear in warm-blooded creatures because of the way they look, because they're lizards, because they're these reptilian monsters that if we ever saw, it would activate a primal urge in us to run, a primal urge in us to be afraid. Because that's just how that's just how evolution is what evolution has created in us.
Yeah, like our makeup, our DNA is kind of configured that way.
Yeah, so the Gorn exploit that because they're terrifying creatures. So I really do like that recontextualizing of them and creating them as this not just a prevalent threat, but an existential threat. that is constantly on the outskirts, like the Borg were when they first showed up in the Next Generation.
For sure. Do you think that the Gorn will come back? Because I know that Pike does mention it when she brings it up, saying like, "Hey, I'm still like kind of fearful for them coming back," and he's like, "Well, now that we know, we'll be ready."
I think they will come back. I do think they'll be prevalent. They'll be a prevalent foe, but I think they'll be used sparingly because they should be. I believe that the way Strange New Worlds should use them is like the Boogeyman. Strange New Worlds is in a very interesting place that they can use a species that we are familiar with, but we don't have a lot of information about because they don't show up after the original series. I'm not counting Enterprise. I don't want ATS. I don't want that. They don't show up after the original series. So if we ever see the Gorn again, I want them to continuously be this threat that we can never fight back.
Okay.
I want them to be the Boogeyman. I want it to be a moment that every single time we hear the Gorn, we get scared. We get worried that more people we know, more crew on the Enterprise are going to die.
Gotcha.
And I don't want it to get to the point because continuity-wise, it cannot get to this point. The Gorn can never be Federation allies. The Gorn can never be, they can never team up with the Gorn. They can never be like, okay, well, the Gorn will be, we've got an uneasy truce with the Gorn. They can never do that because if they did, that breaks the original series canon. And they're in a very interesting place where they can continuously find interesting and terrifying ways to bring in this foe.
I like it. I definitely like it.
I hope so, anyway. If this show goes on for 10 years, I want at least one episode where the Gorn kick everyone's ass.
But I think we could still see them, just that Starfleet doesn't have to see them, but we can see them as the audience looking in.
I think La'an can see them. I think I can see a world where the end of La'an's story arc, where she finally does kind of come to terms with everything and no longer sees the Gorn as a threat, as a scary threat, is from her confronting them one-on-one. Like she's on a Gorn ship and sees Gorn. But I think it's very important that she has to be alone. I don't think anyone else can be there.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if you do, then you have a lot of people who have met the Gorn who have lived to tell the tale. And then you create a really unfortunate continuity problem where Kirk is like, what the hell's a Gorn?
Yeah.
I think right now you're in a place where he can just be ignorant of that. And I think you can continue to live in that space. I think that's what they wanted to do with the Romulans and Enterprise.
Okay.
Because if Enterprise had kept going, they would have done the Romulan Earth War. And the Romulan Earth War, during the Romulan Earth War was many years where humans had no direct physical contact with Romulans, so they didn't know what they looked like until the original series. And I think you can play in that same space that Enterprise had intended to play in with the Romulans, but with the Gorn. It's my 2 cents anyway.
Works. It definitely works.
All right. I don't know if I have much else, actually.
I'm good.
Let's see. What's that? The Biobed force field. That's cool. Yep, I did that. Yep, that's cool. I'm good. I'm done.
Sweet deal. I'm
all
excited
right, Cookie.
for the next episode, man.
Me too. I think the trailer looked like it's a lighter episode, which I'm happy about. There's a picture where Ortega and Chapel are having dinner together.
Okay.
And it's definitely just platonic. And I don't want to be this guy. But like if they wanted to be like, maybe Chapel doesn't pine for Spock for 10 years and maybe she starts dating Ortega's, I'd be like, better character arc. Just saying. Better character arc.
I like her. All hands on deck for Spock. That's the way I see it.
No, because that is the least interesting thing about Chapel. Chapel is such a shit character in the original series because she's clearly only defined by her infatuation with Spock. And I hate that so much.
You got to keep canon.
break canon for this.
I guess we'll end the show on breaking canon.
The thing is, like, doing that to Chapel doesn't break anything.
Yeah.
It bends it, but nothing that the show could do that I could see could break canon.
Mm-hmm.
Unless like the Gorn invade the Earth.
And then they become allies, and
that could break the canon.
After.
That could break the canon, but nothing. Whatever. Cookie, plug your shit.
I'm Just Little Podcast. You can find me all over social media. Just Little Podcast on Instagram. Just Podcasting on Twitter. You can check out the podcast every single Tuesday. I drop a new episode. So by the time this airs, I might have already dropped out 2 episodes because I missed the following week. So I'm trying to catch up. We had a lot of stuff going on with Star Wars, so that will be my part 2 episode. I dropped a new series on Patreon, so you can check that as well. A lot of great stuff happening over there. And of course, you can find me here talking Star Trek with this lovely human being over here.
This weird human being today. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I greatly appreciate it, of course. As I mentioned up top, I'm Brandon T. McClure, the Fake Nerd Podcast family podcast. This is Fake Nerds Watch. There are plenty of other Fake Nerds Watch series you can check out. There's plenty of others. Star Trek Strange New Worlds. We've done all the Star Trek shows that have aired this year. Just the ones this year, I believe. Because we did, or did we do last year too? Yeah, we did last year too, because we started Lower Decks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've done Lower Decks, Discovery, Strange New Worlds, Picard. You want to check out those. Those are all up here. If you want to check out some of the Marvel stuff, we just finished Moon Knight, so there's tons of stuff there. Obi-Wan will probably be out by the time this is out. So check out Obi-Wan. That's a new Star Wars show if you guys are interested. I like that show quite a bit. Spoiler alert. So there's tons of Fake News Watch that you can check out if you like this video and you subscribe to this channel. You can also check out Basement Arcade Pause Menu, Animation Station, and Fake Nerd Book Club. Those are other shows that we have on this channel that you can check out if you'd like. Or you can check out our mothership show. We go live every Sunday on the Fake Nerd Podcast. That's the main show, Fake Nerd Podcast, where we talk about news and things like that. The latest episode to go up, we talked about all the cool stuff that dropped from Celebration. Cookie, so much exciting shit came from Celebration.
Oh yeah.
So we talked about all that cool jazz, and we talked about Top Gun Maverick, which might be one of the best movies of the year.
Highest grossing film from somebody I know.
From somebody you know?
Oh, yeah. Tom Cruise and I met Tom Cruise a few years back, and I'm joking with you. I've never met Tom Cruise in my entire life.
That's such a weird way to frame that sentence, from somebody you know.
Well, I mean, we all know who Tom Cruise is. I mean, you got to be living on a rock to not know who he is.
I know. I'm just saying. It's a weird way to frame that sentence. And it's not the highest grossing. I don't think it's the highest grossing Tom Cruise film. No way.
Yeah, I believe that's what I've heard. Word on the street.
It's definitely vying for top grossing in Memorial Day, for Memorial Day weekend.
Let me check.
But I don't know. Okay, but it doesn't matter for this episode, so we'll end this. Sure. The next episode to come from the Fake Nerd Podcast is a deep dive on Pixar films. So if you like Pixar films, you want to hear us talk about Pixar films, check it out. That's live every Sunday. And then it goes up on Monday on everywhere else. All right, so that'll do it then. You can find all the Fake Nerd Podcast peoples and things like that. Hey, by the way, our 6th anniversary is coming up. I almost forgot to say this. Our 6th anniversary is coming up. If you guys got questions you want to ask us, send them our way. Fake Nerd Podcast on all the social medias, fakenerdguys@gmail.com. Please do so. We greatly appreciate anything you want to talk, anything you want to ask us for our anniversary. Let us know. All right. Otherwise, you can find me at BT McClure on all the social medias, mostly just Instagram and Twitter. I also write for Screen Rant, where I put up a bunch of lists, and I write for Atomic Geekdom, where I write a series called Revisiting the Infinity Saga, where I go through what I believe to be 50 of the most defining moments of the MCU, and I edit kaijuramenmedia.com. And that's everything. Cookie, what are your socials?
Just Little Podcasts on Instagram, Just Podcasting on Twitter.
All right, until next time we see us, guys, live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.